Hello and welcome to Plus Sports on Plus TV Africa. It's Plus Sports Special, and you have your very athletic host, Mikhail Tunber, on the show with you this morning. We're going to be delving into the world of sports, having a discussion with our guest, Gboyega, analyzing the essence of football these days, which has seemingly become all about money. I know many of us still remember the potential debacle that it was when clubs around Europe announced they wanted to create a breakaway super league, a European super league. They all had their reasons. Fans would not have it. Certainly, the establishment wasn't going to have it. And they've done so much since then. They've had local politicians, local governments erect and establish laws to prevent it, which all goes against the competition laws that already are in effect, effectively in itself, protecting the European Champions League as it is. We may not have heard the last of that particular proposal because, in my opinion, with enough money on the line, you can buy consensus. You can buy the necessary support you need. But let's see. It may be something that still happens, but it does bear looking at the state of affairs in football right now. Are some clubs, some leagues, wealthier and better off than others? Surely we all know the old adage, not all fingers are equal. And it seems in the European Super League situation, it is for that very reason that a lot of clubs are interested in the idea of establishing a new world order in European football. But first, I want to talk to Gboyega, my very able sports analyst who's on the line. Gbenga, good morning.
Good morning, Mikhail. I like how you came into the show by saying it's special. Yes, it's a special. I'm joining you from the market square.
Well,
You know how weird that would be. But generally, in spite of the fact that we can agree that the game has become a business, it surely should be a business. But we shouldn't make it look like money is what makes a successful dream, or money is what makes you achieve positive result or expected result. Let's not go far. This particular season, right? Look at all the finalists throughout the European Cups. Aside from the Champions League, where you have Man City, you have their opponent, is Inter Milan. I don't think Inter Milan are the wealthiest of clubs, even in Serie A, right? Above the likes of Juventus. Look at Sevilla versus Fiorentina. Sevilla are not the best run club in the La Liga, but they are in the final of the UEFA Cup, right? Look at West Ham. Of course, when you start looking at the hierarchy in the English Premier League, West Ham doesn't stand in the top there. But they are in the final of the Conference League. So it tells you that, yes, money is a critical aspect, but it is not the 100% part of football. Todd Boehly spent 600 million on Chelsea this season. Chelsea are in area 12, and they find it difficult to even get to the 11th position. Like top 10 is looking like a top hill. Now we know that Chelsea are a traditionally big club. They may very well go into next season as one of the favorites for top four. But this season tells you so much about having money and spending wisely. So as we agree that football has become a business, we should also agree that
they
not
say
all about money.
they say money cannot buy you happiness. But when it comes to European football, when it comes to league football, when it comes to running a club football team, it seems that the more money you have, the more opportunities you have at winning trophies, which effectively buys you happiness. I wonder, a lot has been made about the Chelsea situation this season. The fact that Todd Boehly has spent a lot of money, perhaps didn't spend it in the right order, hired and fired a manager or two. He's a novice in the situation, in the business of running a football club, not an American football club, a European, a world recognized football club. That has been the go-to example. However, the likes of Florentino Perez have said in the past, even almighty Real Madrid cannot compete with state-owned clubs like PSG. And in the English game now, there's the Abu Dhabi owners for the Etihad. There is the Saudi owners in Newcastle, and there may very well be by the end of this season, which comes to a conclusion in the next couple of weeks with Champions League, Europa League, football, all of that wrapped up, there might very well be a Qatari owner at Manchester United. Chelsea are well boxed up now. They jumped from one billionaire to a bunch of billionaires. There's the idea that Gboyega at Arsenal is now finally ready to spend out of those billions he is, shall we say, hoarded for years on building the team steadily, gradually, but eventually to get them to a state where they can compete again as the Arsenal of old. You know, it seems like by the time this season is all said and done, we might have 6 to 7 teams in the English game alone with billionaires at the helm. How can anybody else compete? In the Premier League alone, there's going to be 3 state-owned clubs. And some of those clubs are even buying other clubs in other leagues, in the French league, in the Italian league, all in a bid to create a multi-club system. How can the Real Madrid that we've known as the European juggernaut that they've always been compete in such an environment without a Super League pivot?
They will compete. I mean, Real Madrid you just told they have 14 champions. They were knocked out in the semi-final. They would have gone on for 15. The PSG you compared with them are nowhere near anything in Europe. So they may be state-owned. They may have the money. Are they utilizing it wisely? In fact, I mean, PSG, the top 5 leagues, have the wealthiest salary database, if I should put it that way. The top 3 players, Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe, can actually pay an entire team in another league. But PSG are not successful in Europe. I'll still make an example of Roma. Last season, Roma, with a limited budget and a limited squad, just due to 1 or 2 additions in the window, won the Conference League for the first time in years. This season, the same Roma are in European sports in the Serie A and in the final of another European Cup, which is the Europa League, a step higher than they were last season. Winning this one would ensure that Roma plays in the Champions League next season. Do you see the progression? And that is Roma. Look at Juventus. Look at AC Milan. Look at Inter Milan. The Juventus, who even have all the money in Serie A, I found one thing. They have legal issues. They've been deducted 10 points and they are out of Europe. They are in 7th position as it stands. So I would still say, as much as money is important, you should understand generic growth. You should understand financial consultation and expertise. All these things come into play. Even the Man Cities of this world that we say they are state-owned, they spend wisely. The best striker in the world, they got him for 60 million. If you understand the process by which they have to wait for a certain clause to close before they approach, all those things are strategic. You cannot just boil it down to because they have money. They have money, yes, but they are spending it wisely.
But
So
aside
it's not just
from
narrowed down to having.
But it's not just about whether they have the money to buy the best players on the market. The money they have is the kind of money that can allow them to not have to take out loans to build a new stadium or renovate to an expanded level current stadiums. The likes of Arsenal back in the day moving from Highbury to Emirates, we saw the effects that had on their title ambitions. They went about 10 years without moving beyond the ambition of just qualifying for Champions League, trying to build back wealth to be able to compete. And in that time, Chelsea left them so far behind. In that time, Manchester City established dominance. I remember back in the 90s, it was Manchester United and Arsenal. Then in the early 2000s, it was Manchester United and Chelsea Football Club.
Chelsea.
Now it is Man City and whoever can get it up on any given season to challenge for it. And we don't even know if Arsenal will have what it takes to challenge next season. We don't know if Liverpool will be able to summon up enough financial power to go into the market to really renovate the midfield that they've desperately needed to do so for years. They have Firmino leaving this summer. It begs the question, how can you compete with a team that is so far ahead of you when the likes of Manchester City have built effectively a football campus? They have multiple training grounds. They have a world-class stadium that isn't funded by loans. And other clubs are going to have, other clubs who are currently being taken over, other clubs who have the money at their disposal right now, are going to be able to expand their stadiums in order to accommodate more fans, increase revenue, and therefore stay ahead of the teams like Roma. I'm talking about the possibility that in the next 10 years, we might not be seeing any such fairy tale runs to any such Champions League finals, Europa League finals, or even the new European Conference final that currently exists. If the Super League was a concern for everybody else in the world of sports, how is the monopoly and shuffling of wealth to the very top currently in the Premier League not going to be a concern?
How much did Napoli have coming into this season?
Come on,
Look at
that's a
where they are
Serie
in
A.
this area.
Nobody's buying a Serie A
The point
team.
is, they got out of the Champions League in the semi-final, knocked out by fellow Serie A team, and the Serie A team is in the final of the Champions League. The point is, we are focusing on the tool. We are not focusing on what the tool is used for. Money is a tool. It depends on who holds it. You played game when growing up, PS2, PS, and all those things. You could hold a Brazilian squad with all the stars, and somebody will use Czech Republic to beat you 5-0.
But those
Because
ones, those people that use Czech Republic to beat you and your Brazil, those people read the manual of the game before it has even dropped.
The point is they know how to use the team.
Okay.
If another person who knows how to use the game uses that Brazil, it will beat anybody. So the focus is not on the wealth we have. Yes, we might have wealth, we might want to make money. But what do you use it for? The Manchester City we are calling today, look at that current squad. How many new players do they have over the years? Aside from Alan joined this season, Calvin Phillips is not even a starter. Ederson has been with them for years. Silva has been with them for years. De Bruyne has been with them for years. These are still the core of the team. Gboyega, Foden, Akonji joined recently. Kai Walker is becoming a cult hero. So we should not make it look like every season Man City are buying new players. No, they spend wisely. They manage their team. In fact, Guardiola was saying in the press conference, look at the crop of the starting 11. How many of those players play 90 minutes throughout the season? So go and settle down and check off their statistics. They don't. But if you look at Liverpool, you look at Chelsea, look at Arsenal. Saka is playing every single game. He will definitely be fagged out and have some bad games that will indirectly affect the team. Then they will say the club is not well managed.
All right.
They are not achieving anything. No.
All right. You've made 2 points there, and I want to take them one by one. First of all, as regards to management of a club, when you have the money available to you, you can hire the very best management and administrative executives to manage your club. Again, I go back to Chelsea. A lot has been made about the first season being an topsy-turvy affair. But regardless of whether it was expected to get this bad, it was always expected to be a transitional period. It was always expected that there was going to be growing pains in a period where an old administration was being shifted out while new ones were gradually being put in place. And we've seen that the effects of that in the short term have been problematic, but eventually we can expect that not only will the new owners learn, but so will the new administrators that have been put in place. And in that period of long-term thinking, they will be able to purchase new players with all of the work that is necessary to a scout to keep track of their performance levels, to be analytical about every single data point before making a decision and pulling the trigger in the transfer market. That is what you would expect. And that is the pedigree that Manchester United back in the day built. It took a while to get there, but once they did, they no longer needed to buy 5 players in a single transfer window. They could buy 1, they could buy 2. It is the same model that currently exists in Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga. They steal players from their from their rivals within the league. They buy 1 or 2 players every season, and they get those players for a bargain because of how long it has taken them to build to the status that they are in currently. Right now, these clubs that are being purchased, these clubs that have a ton of money, they are gradually going to get to that point where the Man City of today, under Pep Guardiola, that has spent over £1 billion and spent almost another £1 billion under the combined managers of Hughes, Mancini, Pellegrini. Those managers spent a lot of money, but those were the growing pain periods. Man City now can go into the market and buy an Erling Haaland for 60 million, can buy Julian Alvarez for 30 million, and don't have to spend as much as 100 million combined. Why? Because they've spent the 100 millions in seasons past. And even in the season that they bought Jack Grealish, they spent 100 million pounds. They didn't need to spend more on other players because in the past they've already done that. They spent the 200, they spent the 300 and 400 million pounds in previous seasons. Going forward, they just have to bring 1 player in, 2 players in at a time to reshape and adapt to new future seasons. I'm just saying, all of that money puts them ahead of everybody else so that when everybody else is looking at, we cannot afford to spend 100 million pounds even on bringing in 5 players. Because if you bring in 5 players for 100 million pounds, those 5 players are not the value equivalent of players that are brought in for 300 million pounds at Man City. Even if the 300 million pounds only covers 3 players.
I think, first of all, we need to understand that the fact that I come from a rich home and I am also intelligent doesn't mean that it was my rich home that gave me the intelligence. It was the resources that gave me the avenue. Yes, but my intelligence stood me out. We have a lot of rich people that got to school and came out to top class. The point is, if you look at the last decade, Manchester United topped every other person. The same Manchester United had the record signing of a defender. Where is the defender today? That defender, mind you, is still a captain. Chelsea today bought a record signing goalkeeper, Kepa Arrizabalaga. You won't mention him in top 20 when you're mentioning goalkeepers today. People have spent money more than Man City, especially PSG. Where are they today? The same Man City that we're talking about spent wisely. I still would fight the fact that we are limiting Man City's achievement to the fact that money propelled them. Yes, they had money, but so did other big clubs.
Yes, but of course, without the kind of...
When we talk about the Super League, do you know that it's not only Man City that applied? We had Juventus, we had Real Madrid, we had other clubs because they know they had the money. All those other clubs are in the same water group. So don't single out Man City like they had the edge over others.
Okay,
they just used their money.
But the amount of money they had played a factor in whether Pep Guardiola came to the club, whether he brought his immense genius to manage the squad they were willing to buy and pay for him. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to discredit all the effort and the intelligence that it took to get Man City to where they are now. However, every club has duds. They make errant purchases that turn out to not have been as good a return on money as they expected those purchases to be at the time they were made. But regardless of whether they make bad purchases every once in a while, effectively having all that money available to them allows for them to cope with the losses that can come and result from bad choices. Man City
I
bought
agree.
Alexandro under Pep Guardiola. They bought Danilo under Pep Guardiola. Both players were considered not good enough for Pep Guardiola, but none of those players were bought without Pep Guardiola's say so. Even
Yeah.
he can make mistakes. And when they were sold within a season of being purchased, even João Cancelo now, as good as he was, has fallen out with the manager. He is being shifted and moved out of the club. So my point is, when these clubs have all this money, they have a softer landing available to them when they make mistakes. And then they can go again in the summer and purchase more players. And if you get 6 or 7 out of 10 right, if you get 7 purchases right out of 10, you are still better off than the team that can only afford 100 million purchase. And if they get 7 out of 10 wrong, they've lost about 70 million pounds.
Okay, let me paint a narrative for you. See it this way. The English Premier League started in 1992-1993, right? Before Man City started sniffing any form of dominance in the league, let me not even say dominance, sniffing any form of being favorized to win the league. Man U have already won 13. Man U have been winning the league, they've been getting the money. Arsenal won it 2 or 3 times. The fourth time was in 2005 and 2003-2004 season. Now, Man City were bought state-owned starting from 2010, right? That showed that the money didn't fall from the sky. They didn't start 1992-1993 as a big club. They got there, right? Newcastle are playing in the Champions League for the first time in over 30 years. They got there. We saw Eddie Howe took this Newcastle team. He was appointed when Newcastle were in 19th position in 2021. That's late 2021. He was so instrumental in 2022. Look at him at the end of 2022 season. He's in top position, right? He's going into the Champions League. Look at Aston Villa. Look at Brighton. I am saying, in spite of the fact that there is money, the money didn't appear suddenly. There was a build-up from somewhere before the money came. Both of you and I are analysts, right? Before a sponsor picks either of us, they listen to us and they understand. They listen to us and they understand that you have quality to offer. But before you had that quality, you've been learning, you've been doing your homework, you've been growing. But when somebody now sees you on BBC, on CNN, or ESPN, they say, "Oh, it's because he has sponsors, he has money." I didn't have sponsors from birth. So I want us to see it in a way that these sponsors saw value, they came in, and the value reciprocated the money that was brought in. That's all. So it shouldn't be limited to the fact that they just have money. Every other big club have money too.
Okay, I want to take us back in time. So time when Real Madrid was the ultimate destination, not for footballing reasons. Surely we can all agree that footballing reasons have always been a tremendous attracting value for why a lot of players would choose to go to Real Madrid. But there was also a time when they offered the very best wages. They still are very competitive at the upper level of wages. They can still offer players as much as 400, 500,000 pounds a week. That has not gone away. However, if you remember back then, when Real Madrid chooses to spend heavily to assemble a squad, we called them the Galacticos. Now, PSG have a team that is over bloated with talent. We don't even call them the Galacticos because they are. It is expected for them. It is expected that every season they are not rebuilding. They are not going again. They just have a standard of building a squad of the size, of the competitiveness, of the quality of being considered a Galacticos team. We look at Manchester City, same applies. So much quality all over the pitch. Quality enhanced by capable genius level coaching, but still quality beyond most of what everybody else in the league has, and certainly more so than most of the rest of the European footballing clubs. if we accept that Real Madrid back in the day were the club to go to, the destination for financial security, back then I remember fans used to complain. You have a player you're looking forward to seeing realize his potential. And in the next 2 seasons, Real Madrid can show up and pick him out of your squad, and he's gone. He's out of your reach because you could never compete with the kind of wages they could offer him. They could keep him aside from the footballing reasons they could use to attract him. There's the fact that if they offer him £300,000, you can't afford to offer him even 250. Now, clubs like Manchester City, PSG, Manchester United, all of these clubs are going to be able to do that. Even Arsenal, in order to compete, are giving, let me rephrase, have given Bukayo Saka £300,000 as wages for a player of his age because they know if they don't do it, Man City will do it. Real Madrid will do it. Other clubs in Europe have more money, are willing and capable and ready to do it. If that is, and then another point you made earlier, that Manchester City, not every player plays 90 minutes in full, whereas Arsenal, you have Bukayo Saka playing over 80, 90% of the games, playing 90 minutes complete. Well, money buys you a bigger squad, a larger squad of quality. When you look to your second team, your second 11, you don't feel like you're shortchanged. You don't feel like you're playing a bunch of youngsters because you're looking at players who are very much on a level that they could walk into any other club in Europe and be starters. How does money not influence your ability to compete better than other clubs that do not have money? Even if Newcastle built their success to this point by spending minimal amount of money, the promise of what they could do next season, having qualified for Champions League, should be scary to clubs who do not have the capacity to compete financially.
Yeah, I agree, but I still say we are limiting the scope. Look at Arsenal, for example. Last 2 seasons, Arsenal were the highest spenders in the English Premier League. The highest. They finished outside the top four. That was in the 2021, 2022. Yes, 2021, 2022 season, before the current season. They were the highest spenders. This season, Chelsea were the highest spenders. Look at where Chelsea are today. Look at those 2 seasons and look at those two clubs. As high as they spent in the summer, it didn't reflect on their season. I will still talk about good managing. You mentioned Bukayo Saka. Nothing is to say if the club was well managed and the likes of Martinelli, the likes of Luis Nelson were incorporated into the team. I mean, you brought in a closer. Can't he be what's the word now? When you mix your players up, right? You brought in a Gabriel Jesus. You still have an Educator on the bench. A Pep Guardiola in that squad will play all these attackers at equal level. Trust me. I mean, he was leading a certain Real Madrid 3-0 in the second leg, and he had Mahrez and Foden on the bench because Bernardo Silva and Jack Grealish were starting. How many teams will Jack Grealish walk into? But Jack Grealish is a star at Man City. It's not because of money. Yes, he was brought in for 100 million, but we would agree that that's not his level. Man City and Pep Guardiola, we brought star out of it. So it is not really only down to money. Arsenal also have the way if they want to. They had the opportunity to get Vlahovic. They had the opportunity to get Modric. Owner's decision, administrative decision made them lose those players. It's not because of money. It's because of administrative decision. So let's distinguish between administration and procurement.
All
I
right.
think Man City are just making good decisions.
I think it's safe to agree that we're not going to agree entirely on this subject matter.
We can agree to disagree.